Elevate TV, advancing kingdom lifestyle.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of the Gigi Report. I'm your host, Godfrey Gichuki. I welcome you to join us today. If you're following us on TV, great stuff, welcome. If you're joining us through the social media platforms, I request you to share with your friends and remember to subscribe. We're live on Elevate TV, Kenya, YouTube channel, Facebook page. Please remember to sign and leave your footprint, give us your comments, and let's join in this wonderful conversation. Today, I have some special guests on the set, and we're going to have a very interesting conversation. We are talking about church governance, the call to put its house in order. The church needs to put its house in order, and that's the conversation we're going to have. And I want to welcome the guests I have on the set this evening. Welcome. So let's start with you, Professor Waithima. Karibu sana.
Thank you very much, Gigi. And I'm glad to be here to talk, to give my input in this conversation. Just to mention that I fellowship at CITAM.
Right.
And I have been a leader there.
Yes.
So this conversation about church governance is of importance to me.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Yeah, welcome, Professor Waithima. It's good to have you on the set. As always, you have been here before.
Sure.
And so I'm very, very pleased to have you here. And then we have another gentleman here, Mr. Jeremiah Karanja. Please, would you welcome the audience?
Welcome, audience. I'm Jeremiah Karanja. I'm the Chief Executive Officer, Institute of Certified Secretaries. There we deal with matters governance, but in addition, I'm a Christian, born-again Christian. I have been a church elder. Currently, I serve at CITAM, and I welcome you to participate in this discussion.
Wonderful. Last but not least, Professor Ayiro, welcome to the show. I'm very, very happy to have you on the set. You can welcome the viewers as you introduce yourself briefly.
Thank you very much, our host, Reverend Gigi. Is it Gichuki or just Gigi?
Yeah, Gichuki or Gigi, yes.
Thank you very much. I really feel privileged to be here today. My name is Laban Ayiro. My location in the Republic of Kenya, born in Kibera, but I come from Western Province. I belong to the Pentecostal Assemblies of God.
Right.
PAG, and do a lot of governance issues with our troubled church, but we are hoping we'll sort it out. Thank you.
Welcome, sir. Welcome, sir. Yeah, absolutely amazing. And those of you from the KAG who are following this conversation, welcome. The professor is here, and so please, I'm sure you want to listen keenly to what he has to say. So, ladies and gentlemen, most people agree that certain section of the church has failed the very communities they purport to serve. Granted, the behavior of a few errant pastors has jeopardized the reputation and the credibility of the Kenyan church at large, and everyone is actually affected. So this conversation is basically to ask what has gone wrong and how can the church put its house in order, metaphorically speaking. And so welcome to this conversation. This is the Gigi Report. As always, the Gigi Report is a platform for big, bold, and honest conversation on a broad range of subject matter, social, cultural, economic, philosophical, theological, political issues. And today we're going to have an issue to do with leadership and governance and, matters of the church. So, my guests, as you have heard, we have Professor Laban Ayiro, who is the Vice-Chancellor, Daystar University, and Professor of Research Methods, Methodology and Statistics. Absolutely. Those of you that are in the academia, this is your go-to professor if you want help with your research. And Professor Waithima here is also an expert. He's the director of Daystar Leadership and Professional Development Institute, and an expert in statistics, economics. You've also written a book on statistics.
Yes, I have.
Yeah, so wonderful. Again, another go-to expert in the area of research for those of you students that are looking for help. And Jeremiah Karanja here, he's a practitioner. He's a fellow of the Institute of Certified Secretaries in Kenya. These are the guys who are the guardians of governance in this country. So let's have this conversation. So let's begin from the beginning. I want us to dive right into the matter, the subject matter that is at hand, the issue of church governance. And so, I am aware that Professor Waithima, Daystar University, and ICS have partnered to set up a conference to deal with this matter of governance next week. Those of you that are watching, of course, you might watch this much later. We are in July. We're talking about next week. You can see the footprints of this video. So the conference is upcoming. So let's start from the conference.
Sure.
They tell us what the conference is about and why the conference has been set up and why we even need to have this serious conversation on church governance and the dialogue, what you're calling the dialogue. And so since Professor Waithima, you are like the host of the conference, we can start with you.
Thank you, Gigi. Indeed. You know, when people come together as an organization, there is no organization that will function without proper administrative governance structure, including church. We have been fortunate to run governance training for corporate, and Daystar being a Christian university, we felt, why don't we also help church? And the way to do it is not to tell any church leader, this is how you do it, but to have a dialogue.
All right.
And so we partnered with ICS, the Institute of Certified Secretaries, and as you know, these are the people real in the driver's seat in matters governance in this country. And so we are calling this dialogue for church leaders to come together and dialogue about governance. And the reason why we must do that, Gigi, is because as a church, we have very many stakeholders. Government is a stakeholder.
Yes.
The Kenyan people are stakeholders.
Absolutely.
And of course, the congregants.
Yes.
They are stakeholders. They want to be assured that there are certain things, certain structures, administrative structures that are there to hold people to account. As you may know, issues of governance is checks and balances and holding people to account. You have this structure that oversight another one and another office that oversight another one, so that things before they get out of hand, they are well dealt with within that governance structure. And we felt as a Christian university, we want to go out there and bring people together to dialogue about church governance. Because if we don't do it, as church, tutapangwa. Na hatutaki kupangwa. We want to have organized ourselves before tupangwe.
Absolutely. And there is now an ongoing conversation about, there is a commission, or is it a, what do you call it? The presidential commission, or I think committee.
Yes. Task force.
Task force, yes, that's the word I was looking for. The task force that is actually gathering views on, you know, on the matters of governance following the events of not too long ago in Shakahola. So, sorry, we have to mention Shakahola here. So, Bwana Karanja, what is your role, the role of your institution in that discussion before we come to the professor to talk about the other matters?
Thank you, Gigi. The Institute of Certified Secretaries is a creation of the law.
Okay.
It's created at Act 534 of the Laws of Kenya, an Act of Parliament. And our mandate, just like you have various professional associations dealing with various issues, accountancy, law, HR, our institute, the mandate is promotion of good governance.
Okay.
And therefore, you have our members who are referred to different titles, whether company secretaries, board secretaries, corporation secretaries in various institutions.
Okay.
And when they are there, one of the things they are charged with is to ensure compliance and good governance in those institutions.
Okay.
Therefore, having this mandate of promotion of good governance, we have been doing this especially in the corporate sector for many years.
Okay.
We are involved and especially deal a lot with government. For example, actually during the same time we are having this dialogue, we'll also be training state corporations all over the country.
Okay.
The boards, the new board members who have been appointed. And we've done that even for private organizations, NGOs and the like. So now, when I was appointed as a CEO of the Institute last year, and miraculously met with Waithima.
Okay.
And we had around December last year. And we had some discussions and I told him, I think my passion is serving God in the marketplace.
Okay.
I have served God as a church elder and in various other capacities. And now I would want to utilize this opportunity in my capacity as a CEO, not only to impact our corporate entities in terms of good governance, but how can that also be translated in the religious circles, especially the church.
Okay.
Because I have seen the value where you look at organization which is well governed, you compare it with another organization which is struggling on matters governance, and you can see the big difference. And therefore, I am convinced that if our churches are well governed, it will be to the benefit of both even the founders of those churches, the members of the churches, the society at large, the government, and most importantly, we will be able to expedite in terms of the execution of our mandate of reaching out. But
Okay.
if we suffer on the matter of governance, then even our primary mandate of reaching out to the entire world will be a dream which will never be realized.
Okay. Wonderful. Thank you very much. Matters well said, Bwana Karanja. So, Professor Ayiro, you know, you represent the university. You've been in management in Moi University. Actually, you served as acting Vice-Chancellor for a while. From where you sit, maybe tell us what you think this dialogue is about and why we need to have it. And then what you think, maybe you can also expound on what you think is actually broken and going wrong, and why the church needs to put its house in order.
Yeah, thank you very much. And I align myself to what my colleagues have said. And on the onset, I would like to invite everybody for this governance retreat.
All right.
Or training or seminar at Daystar. It is not an ordinary occurrence. It is intended to encourage dialogue, but within very specific objectives.
Okay.
Because we want to have certain outcomes that will impact on our society.
Okay.
After what has happened, or what is happening, it is still happening in Shakahola.
Yeah.
I think Kenya's national conscience has been damaged.
Yeah.
Right.
I think anybody, you don't have to be a believer.
Right.
Your conscience is damaged. And the worst bit is that this epicenter of horrible happenings took place within what we are calling God's space.
Yeah.
People were attracted there because of their need for salvation, and it turned tragic.
All right.
But you know, that's why the shepherd is very important
Yes.
in our Christian doctrine. A shepherd will lead the sheep, just like Christ did. And so it's important for the shepherd to know the purpose of the road, the road,
Right.
and the staff.
Right.
That is the essence of this governance workshop.
Okay.
But I hasten to add that, yes, my brother at the Institute of Certified Secretaries, the functioning of that institute has a national purpose.
Right.
And we are very privileged to partner with them. But you know, it is not about constitutions.
Yeah.
Right.
It is not about legalities. It is about the value system.
Okay.
And I think the underlying this governance conference in Daystar, we will be very deliberate in bringing out the aspect of values.
Right.
And we are talking about Christ-centeredness values.
Right.
And we hope that we can send our bishops and men of God into self-introspection.
Right.
So as you sit here as a bishop, how do you endear yourself? You know, governance will be hanging there if there's no leadership.
Sure.
Because leadership allows for approachability. In Daystar, we believe everybody must be approachable and everybody must be touchable.
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah, whether you are the Vice-Chancellor or the plumber.
All right.
And that's what then allows your congregation, your sheep, to come closer, and you'll notice, oh, that one has a broken leg.
Okay.
That one, the eye is steering. That one looks very content.
Yeah.
So it's really important as we do this governance workshop, and as we think about governance, we must do a lot of introspection. I think Kenya is going through a very difficult time where I keep asking myself, what is godliness? Based on what I see.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And Vice-Chancellor, I really agree that there are very many questions that need to be asked, especially following the trouble.
Yes.
We saw early in March, I think the matter came up in March,
Yeah.
and then, you know, bodies were discovered and all that. And so do you think, and I want to ask this question across to all of you, maybe each of you can comment. Do you think it's a failure of, at the pulpit, you know, the administration of the grace at the pulpit, or is it the administration of the church itself? You know, so there is what happens at the pulpit, and I think that is very efficiently served.
Yeah.
But now that pulpit needs an administration. So do you think that the gap is in how you administrate what goes on at the pulpit, and then of course the structures?
Okay.
Yeah. So
I think both.
Yeah.
yeah.
But for me, it is the sincerity of what goes on at the pulpit
Okay.
that permeates into the realities of our governance.
Okay.
I think if you try to play them separate,
Right.
it will not work.
Okay.
So I think what you are trying to do in our churches is to make our believers be truly God-fearing.
Okay.
We are told in the Bible to guard the heart.
Right.
I keep asking people, which heart? Is it the biological heart? And where is it? Which is this heart that we are guarding?
Yes.
Because the heart will allow you to choose from foolishness and wisdom. The heart will allow you to separate evil from righteousness. The heart.
Right.
Now the question each one of us must ask, where is this heart?
Okay.
And the mission of the church leader is to allow each one of us to know where their heart is. Because the heart carries the emotions. carries the tensions about us all. So I think the administration of running a church comes secondary.
Okay.
Yes, it comes secondary. So let me give you an example of Daystar.
Right.
I've had a privilege to run both a public and a private university.
Yes.
In the public university where I was, all toilets were broken.
Okay.
And I don't want to name the university.
Yes.
And you would never find a piece of tissue paper. At Daystar, there's no toilet labeled student or staff. You walk into any washroom.
Okay.
And it is serviced.
Right.
Does that contribute to the proper administration of the university? Yes. But it starts with the values.
Right.
And character building.
Yes.
Thank you.
Oh, wonderful. Wonderful. Yeah, so administration of the pulpit or administration at the pulpit, you know, that kind of thing.
Sure.
Is it the failure of the voice coming from the pulpit, or is it the administration that makes the pulpit even possible in the first place? And so you can comment on it, and then we can have Karanja also comment on it.
You know, I read a book somewhere, and it was talking about this evangelist.
Yes.
Who was powerfully preaching the gospel, mightily used of God. And somebody said, oh, you're doing great exploits for the kingdom.
Yes.
And humbly he accepted the compliment and just reminded the person the many hours that this person spends in prayer, studying the word of God.
Yes.
For him to come to the pulpit to minister to the people.
Okay.
Yes.
The reason why I use that analogy is, as a church, the organization. What then the front that we give to the people, which is manifested on Sundays or days of worship, that we have meetings. There is a whole work that is behind.
Right.
And that's where now you find governance issues. Because if that governance is not in order, if the model is not in order, this organ speaking to this one, this organ oversighting this other one, then it becomes a bit of a challenge. And that's why sometimes you will see a ministry comes and blossoms very, very fast. And soon, should there be just a small conflict that arises, that ministry kind of goes down. And what we are encouraging is, besides the ministry on the days of worship, let's also take care of this organizational structure that allows us to minister to the people, and therefore the issue of governance. So we need both.
Okay. Okay, and I think I want us to maybe, because we want to be a little bit more specific.
Sure.
If you think about the way a church is organized, a church will probably have a founder. I mean, you know, Kenya is blessed to have a very thriving and a flourishing, charismatic and Pentecostal movement, which started off with the Protestants, then came on the PAGs and the PEFAs of this world, and then the Redeemed, the Deliverance churches. These have become very, very huge and very successful ministries, I mean, even by their numbers.
Yeah.
So Kenya has been very dynamic, very, very thriving Pentecostal and charismatic movement. So specifically, if you look at what are the key governance issues, you know, is it the boards? Is it the oversight? Is it perhaps lack of constitutions? Of course, now we know, I think most churches, as we talk, are registered, largely.
Yes, sure.
Even the Wakorino, our good brothers.
Very good.
And you know, some people sometimes like thinking that I have met them at the registrar when I'm going there to do our paperwork also for our church. And so I think even the very small, you know, institutions that we may think are actually formally registered.
Sure. Yeah.
So maybe perhaps we can identify what are the specific governance issues that you think that we need to bring to the focus that perhaps we haven't had conversations on? Maybe Karanja has a few to point out, and then you can point out others. Professor can also point out others, and then we can begin to go into the details.
Thank you, Gigi. One, you had asked earlier, what is the problem? And the problem is that church is made of people.
Okay.
I always tell my staff, as a CEO, whenever we're having HR challenges, the only challenge with HR is people.
Okay.
As long as you are dealing with people, you always have challenges.
Okay.
If you are dealing with these desks and cups,
Yes.
you just keep it here, it will be there until you come next. But as long as these are the people that the Lord has made, and God in his divine will decided to make them that way.
Yeah.
And they have a will, and they have a choice to make decisions. Having said so, let me say, in the book of Acts, we see the apostles praying and even setting apart some people to the service so that they are able to serve food and other things. And so that the apostles can concentrate on the ministry. So I'll take this to say now, then the apostles were on the podium, as you had put it earlier, preaching the gospel, but there are other people dealing with the administrative issues. These two are very important, because if you don't feed people, you will not have a congregation, using that analogy of the book of Acts.
Yeah.
For instance, this church, Gigi, I'm sure even as you come to preach here on Sunday, there is a lot that has gone into. One, there is a spiritual aspect, which over and above your members praying for you, you as a pastor, you have a personal responsibility to seek God so that he can guide you on what you are going to share to the congregation.
Okay.
But even beyond that, there are other issues which, in addition to prayer, they also require some action by some people who are not necessarily, they are not spiritual in nature. If you are constructing this church, it doesn't matter how much you pray and fast. You still require an architect, you require an engineer, you require a plumber, and all those kind of people. And by the way, some of those people even don't know God, and they are not interested in God. And they can do for you a better church than you, who is very prayerful. I always ask, if today you went to the airport and you are told this airplane, the pilot is a bishop and has been fasting for 21 days, but has no experience, he has never flown in an airplane. And you get another one there who has no idea of God, but has been flying planes for the last 20 years. I'm sure even you, man of God, you still get into that plane which the pilot has some experience.
Absolutely. I think the point is made. So you think that the issues that the behind the pulpit administration, the administrators, we need to have systems in place to empower. So we need administrators.
Yes.
What else do we need in the background?
I still go back to that governance structure that allows check and balances. So think about it. Here I am the owner of this company. Why do you think it's important for me to bring around a board around me? I bring a board because that board then holds me to account.
Okay.
And they offer not just oversight, they also offer insight and also foresight.
Okay. Not oversight, insight, and foresight.
Very good.
All right.
Because when we come to that meeting and we are dialoguing about issues of resources, of money, HR, whatever it is, then they bring this foresight, they bring oversight and insight into it.
Absolutely. Yeah, so I think we'll take a break there now. I think I love that. So ladies and gentlemen, as you're following this conversation, we are talking about church and governance. Professor Waithima here is saying we need oversight, insight, and foresight. So Wonderful. So keep it here. Let's go through this conversation. So we're going to take a short break. When we come back, we return to this conversation. We're talking about church and governance and why the church needs to put its house in order. So don't go away. Take a coffee break. Come back quickly. We continue with this conversation. Welcome back. This is the Gigi Report. We are talking about church governance and the call to the church to put its house in order. Before we went to the break, we were talking about some of the practical issues. What are the issues really, behind the pulpit? And Professor Waithima here was talking about the need to have a board that provides oversight, insight, and foresight. So that's an amazing input there. And I think that really gives a big picture what really a board is about. And of course, this conference will be able to unpack that in finer details.
Yeah.
But there's still another conversation I want us to bring to this table, and I want to ask Professor Ayiro to speak to it. The issue of, as we think about church and governance, there is perhaps a fear, and I think some of the church leaders might be afraid. You guys, you want us to run our churches the way you run your corporations. So is there need to distinguish and separate the governance that is more relevant to the church and the governance that is actually applicable to the corporate, profit making, even if it's non-profit organization? Is there a difference? And Professor, maybe you can speak into that.
Yeah, thank you very much. And I think, what are you governing? You are governing resources.
Okay.
So take a church. We have the human resource, we have the financial resource, and we have the infrastructure resources that have to be governed.
Yeah.
So we are sitting in this beautiful place, clean carpets, because there is an element of governance in terms of maintenance.
Okay.
You have a human resource that comes here every Sunday. And we all pay our tithes or development fund. Those are resources that must be governed.
Right.
And then there is the spiritual governance. That's why you have this conference here, even for leaders next week. At the same time, we are running the one in Daystar, because you want to enhance the governance capability of our church leaders.
Okay.
So I would find it very difficult to separate corporate governance from church governance. And therefore, any institution that is managing financial, human, and physical resources must be governed in a corporate form. It is a corporation.
Yes.
And therefore, the need for a board, an overarching structure at church level, the need for trustees, men and women of God, for the case of a church, where you can make reference when matters are at their best or at their worst.
Okay.
And so we must fight this human tendency to be individualistic and control. And we must democratize the running of our churches.
I love that.
Yes, democratize the running of our churches.
I love that.
And so as a leader, you then spread the burden of leadership. It is not just on you.
Right.
And by the way, why has the Catholic Church survived all the onslaught for the last 2,000 years? Because it is consistent in its governance.
Right.
You know, we have all run away from there, Pentecostals, all of us, you know, Protestants. But, you know, Vatican is a whole government.
Right.
And I think a church that will move into the 21st century must take cognizance of the corporate variables, the human resource, the finance, strategy. What strategy do you have for this church? Just look at this church, the rate you're growing. I hope you have already bought a plot in Karen to put up a mega church. Because yes, you must have strategic thinking.
Right.
And that is corporate governance. You must embrace technology.
Yeah.
I tell my local PAG church in Lumino, in Soy, where I come from.
Right.
You know, we must embrace technology. So we must make recordings. We must bring some video in our sermons. You know, because we are in the 21st century.
Right.
Otherwise, we'll be left behind.
Absolutely. I love that, Professor. I love that. Yeah. So, Bwana Karanja, maybe you can speak into what Professor is saying. Should we differentiate? What do you see?
Yes, as Prof have said, there are certain elements which are, because these are principles. For example, like in the conference you'll be having at Daystar, among the many other things you'll be talking about is issues of succession planning.
Right.
And what we'll be telling you, Bishop, is you are the founder.
Yes.
But the good news and the bad news is that you'll not be in this world forever.
Right.
One day you'll be called to the other world.
Right.
So how have you planned yourself so that if anything happens, this church does not come to an end?
Right.
And we are not necessarily telling you who you should hand over to. But you need to start internalizing these things that you are a mortal human being. We will also be talking about issues, for instance, of meetings, which are the same things we talk even in corporate entities. And again, we'll be telling you those meetings that you hold in the church office for 5 hours, they are not even healthy for you. You actually sign in your death certificate because you are sitting for very long. And at the same time, you are affecting even your family. And you know, your wife is your spouse. The church is not your wife. And therefore, you need to time for your wife. So those are basic principles. However, having said so, governance is also contextual. There are other elements, even though we are talking, for instance, of succession planning. We also have to look at it in the context of the church.
Okay.
And when you'll be having this dialogue, those are the things you'll be discussing. What is the difference between succession planning? For example, where I work as the CEO, is very clear. My term of engagement as a CEO is 5 years, renewable once. Once I have performed and I have finished my 10 years, I go and get elsewhere.
Yes.
Now that could be a bit different in some of the church models based on their constitution. So we have to look at the context, and sometimes back, allow me to mention this, the Institute of Certified Secretaries partnering with a group called Hesabika Trust.
Yes.
We and some church organizations, we initiated the process of developing a code of governance for churches.
Right.
Because the Institute had supported government in coming up with a code of governance for state corporations.
Okay.
And Hesabika requested, let us partner to develop this. So we met a number of church leaders here in Serena. And one of the questions that one of the bishops asked, which is very important, is I sold all my property and invested in the foundation of this church. Now it has reached this level. You are telling me to bring on board members to be telling me what to do with my church. And what we are telling him is to actually governance is helping you to grow this church. Because you may think you don't require those you are saying they are coming to tell you, but there is nobody with monotony of knowledge.
Yeah.
So you need people to advise you and to be telling you, Bishop, as far as the sermon is concerned, you are doing very well. But on matters resources, we need something we call internal controls. We cannot be giving offerings on a Saturday. We put in a basket. Then they are taken to pastor's office, and the pastor decides there is a needy member, give them this 5,000. In short, what we are telling you, let the offerings be corrected, counted, put in a bank account, then let there be a proper mechanism. Somebody has requisition, there is a way of identifying that needy member, because what you are doing is noble, assisting the member. But let there be a mechanism, there is a board member, a whole process of identifying those needy people, proper requisition made, you sign, the money is taken. So at the end of the year, it's very easy to account. This is the amount we received as offering for this year. This went to ABCD. If, as a professional, I'm seeing what I'm giving is being accounted for, I can assure you I'll be more motivated even to give more.
Absolutely.
But if I'm not sure where it's going,
yes,
even the little that we are giving, we withdraw.
You're absolutely right. Ladies and gentlemen, as you're following this conversation, Professor Waithima, it might interest you that we have had a gathering here where we called in our members. We don't allow outsiders, to hear the conversation. So, and we give them a status of our accounts.
Thank you.
A summary. And actually this time round, we brought in the auditor herself.
Good.
We had an auditing firm. You can imagine an auditor coming to the church and the pulpit and giving a summary and saying, in our opinion as a professional auditors, this is the status of your account. And we've seen that bring in a lot of transformation because people can trust us with our resources. So maybe the issue of context. And again, maybe perhaps as you speak into that, different denominations have different kind of theories and even theology. Theology is probably deeper than theory. Theory is built on theology. So do you think that there is need for differentiation and are there issues around, must every church have a structure that is similar, stuff like that? Speak to that.
Yeah, thank you. Not quite. I mean, nobody will dictate how an organization is run.
Okay.
The founders and the people, because again, we are saying this is a church made up of people. They come together and agree this is the way we want to govern ourselves.
Right.
And this is how we want to hold each other to account. As you may know, we have several church governance models.
Okay.
You have the Episcopal, the Catholic, the Anglican, and so forth.
Yes.
So when the leader speaks, then it percolates
down
to the last person.
All right.
Then you have the congregational model. I think it's the one you are describing probably could fit in the congregation.
Yes.
Where the congregation are the ones who have said, this is the way we want to do things. And at the end of the year, they want to hold an AGM and give an account of this is what we did, these are the monies we collected, this is how we used them. And if there are questions, they are raised and they are entertained.
Right.
Then there is the Presbyterian model. And the Presbyterian church.
Yes.
And the way they run their things. There is one layer that reports to the other and so forth. One of the things that happens there is that some of those models, you never quite get to hear a conflict, getting out of the walls of the church.
Okay.
Why is because the governance model there picks the conflict. It's not that it's not there. Conflicts arise.
Yeah.
But because the governance model is tight, it picks it. If this organ is not able to deal with it, there is a higher organ that will deal with it, which can report to this one, and so forth. And that matter fizzles out.
All right.
I hear also people talk about the mega church model.
Yeah, that's the big one. That's the one. That's the one that I think right now is in a very serious question, because the mega church in of themselves tend to manifest themselves around very charismatic leaders, individuals. And like I see as Karanja was saying that so the bishop actually sold off all his family wealth and all that to found the church.
Sure.
Now it's 10,000 seater or stronger, kind of ministry, and so there is that feeling of, look, how do I then invite outsiders, other than my wife and my son and my family members, to come in and sit in the board and tell me what I need to do? So perhaps I'm going to be handing over to my son. My wife, if I'm not here, is the one in charge, and things like that. So there is that sort of a challenge.
Sure.
So maybe the question is, what do we then, is there a kind of a hybrid kind of a scenario where perhaps we can allow amalgam of the various models? Maybe Professor Ayiro, you can speak into that.
Yeah, thank you very much. And thank you, my colleagues, for delving into the various options.
Yeah.
But why do we really want a governance structure? It is, we want to enhance responsibility and accountability for those resources. And it will be very limiting, it will be self-killing if you try to run away from an established structure that allows for responsibility and accountability and also ventilates how you're running that organization.
Right.
And even I hesitate to add that even your depth of spirituality as a church leader is enhanced when you are working within a structure. And I don't know, you can choose to have a flat structure, you can choose to have hierarchy, but the whole idea is your mission. And I keep crying. Right now, I keep crying as a Christian, as a believer in Kenya. We are actually destroying the mission. And now when somebody sees a Bible, they feel repulsed. Because the people who were carrying Bibles were such wicked people. So, the argument is that we can have a hybrid, but allow for some structure that holds the architecture of your institution, literally. And then go before God and become what God wants you to become, and that is a servant.
Right.
You know, when you are a servant, when you pick the broom, as we say, it is not about position or equity. No, it is service.
Right.
So the urge to control diffuses
Right.
into this governance structure,
Right.
organogram or whatever it is. And I think it is a self-controlling mechanism, but we don't want to prescribe. No. We want it to evolve organically within the organization through the right spirit. You know, you and I know we are questioning the spirituality of our leaders.
Prof, let me ask. Recently, when the matter of Shakahola came up, and the matter, lawyers jump into it. Then there was one of the church leaders who actually jumped into the conversation, and he said that, look, this is my son. All right. in respect to one of the two major. This is my son, and I think he hasn't done anything wrong, and all that. So there is that dilemma where it is now not a board, covering a denomination, a growing charismatic movement. It's one individual somewhere who is a father. So that's one problem. Or rather an issue that needs to be spoken to. I know that we don't have so much time to go into it. But then there is the other issue of what we call the associations, the many bodies that have been formed, that bring together several denominations.
The umbrella bodies.
The umbrella bodies. That's the word. So the umbrella bodies. So maybe, and we have very, very little time, so I think we need to just speak into it very, very quickly. Do you favor, or do you have something to say about the umbrella bodies, or the individual who says, oh, that's my son, and I'm the overall, I bathed that denomination, and so whenever they have trouble, they come to me, we sit together, and we sort it out?
I think high callings, when somebody says I, you are walking towards fanaticism.
Okay.
And that is total destruction.
Okay.
That's my comment. And so the umbrella bodies like the NCCK, for example, is useful. Those of us who are a little older know that the democratic space we are enjoying today was because of the gallant people, and I don't want to name them, in NCCK. Because there were a body of churches, they spoke to the conscience of this country.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Bwana Karanja.
Pastor, what I would say...
You share a name with the former NCCK General Secretary.
Yes. What I would say is, as Prof has said, any time, and not only for the church, any time you have in an organization, you only see in one face, there is a big problem.
Big one.
Even in terms of sustainability. One, from a spiritual angle, these have moved from being just a human being to a super, kind of a God. And that's what we are dealing with churches today, where we are having people who are semi-gods, which is, we are replacing the place of Christ. But also from a church perspective, because one of the things we must keep in mind, church as an organization, and that's where the governance issues we are talking about. But then church, the called ones, the body of Christ. Now, church as an organization, for purposes of it being sustainable and being there tomorrow, you must have not just one person, but it must be a structure, whether in a board. And by the way, all these churches, because you mentioned they are registered, they are registered at an act of parliament called the Societies Act. And it provides a structure. When they were registering, no church registered as one person. They even registered the treasurer, the chairman, and all that. It's only that we don't adhere. So we are breaking the law by just having one person run, just adhere to the law. And it is both, as a Christian, is your obligation, as long as the law is not against the word of God, is your obligation to obey what the law says. And that is what the Societies Act actually requires, to have that structure.
Absolutely. Reminds me of the elders that Moses appointed in the wilderness. So actually, Moses democratized. Initially, he was running a one-man show, a mega church, right?
And but then, his father-in-law did not like it.
So speak to that.
Sure. And just to mention, if I may go back to the umbrella bodies, for this upcoming dialogue, we are partnering with all the church umbrella bodies. NCCK, OAIC, the Organization of Africa Instituted Churches. We are partnering with CANAT, the spiritual and the charismatic ones. The KCCAM. We are partnering with all of them.
Evangelical Alliance.
And the idea is, we are not here to tell you this is what to do. But let's have a reference point in which we exchange, and you can run to this umbrella body. As the VC would tell you, even among the universities, we have umbrella bodies that we belong to.
Right.
Because you run there when you require some bit of insight into this.
Yes.
Foresight into this other issue. You run there.
Right.
And when when you apply, say, for example, for a grant, and it is known that this particular university is a member of this association, then people say, yeah, that one we know. Then it must be properly oversighted.
Right.
So there is every benefit in having umbrella bodies.
Absolutely. I think matters well spoken. So there is a clear need to have umbrella bodies, and we can talk about how that can then influence the governance of the various members of those umbrella bodies.
Yeah.
But again, it's a big challenge. But I believe that this conference will produce wonderful results.
Yeah.
We have about 2 minutes, and so I'm going to give you each of you 30 seconds to give one final, want to the church.
Yeah.
To the bishops out there, maybe just give them a call and an urge. So let's start with Professor Ayiro.
Yeah, thank you very much. I think this has been a very engaging discussion. I appeal to every Christian church leader, every Christian believer, to search for excellence in what they do. Because excellence honors God. So these structures we are trying to bring up are supposed to enhance excellence in our churches, excellence in our societies, and Kenya and the world will be a better place.
Sure.
So I plead for excellence because that's what we are standing in for. And remember that when this church exhibits excellence, like doing what you're doing now, you inspire other human beings.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Karanja.
Thank you, Pastor. What I would appeal to our listeners, especially the church leaders, let us be good stewards. God have entrusted us with the lives of people, with resources. When I look at the body of Christ, Jesus started this 2,000 years ago, is still moving on. The church which you have been put as a steward, will it be there 20 years after your demise? That is the thinking that you should be having. What do you need to do now so that 100 years, when you are long gone, people can still be blessed by the ministry that you started?
Thank you. Professor Waithima, and maybe also call all those who are probably need to sign up, and you can tell them what they need to do to sign up.
All right. Thank you. So church leaders, the archbishops, bishops, apostles, senior pastors, elders, deacons, and even pastors' spouses. We know at leadership level, sometimes you walk a very lonely journey. That we know. And that's why we put together this dialogue, just to come together and learn from each other, exchange ideas in matters governance. Like we said from the beginning, if we do not properly govern ourselves, we don't want to be governed by others. And it's important to come together and exchange ideas. So get in touch with us. We are looking forward to having you between the 12th to the 14th of July. That is next week from Wednesday to Friday. And we have assembled experienced church leaders, our fathers, spiritual fathers who are coming, including the leaders of the church umbrella bodies that I have just mentioned. They are all coming. They will be part of this. Our own VC will be facilitating as he shares his experience. FCS, Karanja from ICS will also be doing the same. And so we are looking forward to a time when we can dialogue together. So get in touch with us, Gigi. We want to see everyone there.
Okay. All right. Great stuff.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, gentlemen, for really coming on the show and sharing with us wonderful insights and commentary on the matter of church governance and the call to put the house in order. Ladies and gentlemen, that's all we had for you today. Thank you very much for staying tuned in. And I believe you've learned, you've enjoyed. You can check through the social media platform. We'll provide the contacts and you can get in touch with us. Our numbers on the screen. Then we can link you up to the conference. God bless you so much. Keep It Elevate TV. I've been your host, Godfrey Gichuki. We'll see you another day, same channel. Keep It Elevate. God bless you. Bye for now.